But so let me do this right quick. Now, what was I gonna say? Hell if I know. Tell me a joke. I like kids. Do his then. That's all right.
Okay. So, what do you get when you mix an elephant with a rhino?
Hell if I know. All right, boom. You should be able to share. Well, let's see here. If I do this, what do Palestinians call you? Yeah. What do Palestinians call black people?
I love to know.
Infidel.
That's what you want. You see? You did say
The Birmingham Business Resource Center was designed to be a one-stop shop to assist entrepreneurs in every stage of the development of their business. We are promoting and assisting in the growth of small businesses in our community by providing programs that help with the accessibility of capital, customers, and capacity. We're helping the community by fostering increased employment opportunities and the expansion of business, industry, and economic development. If you need us, please call us at the Birmingham Business Resource Center, 205-250-6380, or visit our website, myBBRC.biz.
The word distinguished, defined as successful, authoritative, and commanding great respect, describes CEO and founder of Brooms Enterprises, Lawrence Broom. Born January 6, 1979 in Birmingham, Alabama, Lawrence knew at an early age that he was destined for greatness. While in middle school, quote, I knew I wanted to be someone that mattered, end quote. A business mindset was cultivating and would evolve into the birth of Brooms Enterprises. As with any great thing, it doesn't become great overnight. It becomes great with learned lessons, dedication, and consistency. The vision for Brooms Enterprises is just beginning to blossom and is the foundation for several different entities under the Broom umbrella. Lawrence Broom is definitely a black man that didn't allow his circumstances to dictate his identity. And we're going to talk about these learned lessons of dedication and consistency. But right now, We're going to talk about a little history. Now, what you do know is that, what was that? The summer of 88, I came storming into your life. You know, and first of all, to all of the Haynes family, hello, I love you. I miss you. I saw everyone recently. We'll chat about that in a second. But I watched you grow up. I watched what I just read.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And you know about my relationship with Ulysses and, you know, of course, how close we are. Tony Cox was here yesterday. Mm-hmm. Biggie.
Yes.
Yeah. But what you don't know is just how close me and your mama is.
Right.
That's my dog. Do you hear me? Do you know we have an inside joke for years? For years, she been like, you know, Reverend Porter really your daddy.
That sound like her. That sound just like her. That sound just like her.
I'm talking about she would say something crazy all the time. But you know all of that. What you don't know is just how close your sister Bridget and I are.
Right.
And just how close your cousin Lakeisha and I are.
Right.
So we family on the Haynes side and the Broom side.
Right.
Which is really cool to me. But enough about me. Let's talk about you. Let's talk about who is, and I wanted to say one more thing. And this is where I want to turn it over to you. Watching you eulogize your grandmother was the most impressive thing I have ever seen. Your poise, your humor, with emotion coming out of your voice but never cracking. It was absolutely beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. So with that being said, I want to know who grandmama is. I want to know mom and them. I want to know, school, high school. Just tell people who they're meeting right now.
Well, I think that was a very impressive intro, and I try my best to live up to that. I see myself as a young man that grew up in a home with 5 women. Myself, my mother had 4 daughters. Kusanya being the oldest in the house. Jamise, Rashida, myself. Then my baby sister Maya, Kia, but we all called her Kiki. And around the corner was my grandmother. I mean, probably 4 or 5 houses from the apartment complex, right there across from Greymount, which is now known as JCC. It used to be JCCEO, but JCCEO is under a new name. But we grew up in an apartment complex right from there. My grandmother was the first woman that I ever fell in love with. And I always have to be kind of mindful when I say that, because I never know how that makes my mom feel, right? And, I love my mom with all my heart, but it was just something about that red woman.
Yeah.
Right? It was something about being up under her, being in her presence. It was something about her love, her lessons. And, as a kid, I only knew what she taught me, but as a man, I learned a lot of things about her as I became a man. My grandfather told me once, he said, "Come here, boy." He said, everybody come and they run and tell me everything, and your grandmama be mad. He say, but I tell you, grandmama, everything everybody tell me, so she's aware of what's going on. And he said, your grandmother is a peculiar woman. And the word peculiar, I had no clue what it meant, but he said, I bet I never hear you call her a peculiar woman. And so, and so, but it was in that moment I realized how special that she was. My grandfather raised me in such a way to be a family man, to have love. I wrote a paper at Alabama A&M my freshman year, and it was about self-actualization. And self-actualization means when you find yourself to have made it, what does that look like? And it was a 2-part paper. I wanted to be a man like my grandfather, who taught the lesson that never ever give your last unless it's necessary. My grandfather believed that self-preservation was the first law of nature. He said that you can't take care of anybody until you take care of yourself. And but he said, always keep something in reserve for yourself, but don't be afraid to give. My grandfather said, I am a rich man, not in finances, but in love. And I watched the way people loved my grandfather. I mean, if you ever had an opportunity to come into that house, he was a man of few words, but every time he spoke, it was so powerful. And he groomed me to take care of my grandmother, me not knowing that what was going on. He would take me to the grocery store with him, and he would teach me how to sit up front and let my grandmother do all the shopping. And everywhere we went, people were so excited to see my grandfather, but not my grandmama. My grandmama, she could raise what we would call some cane.
I'm talking about she'll cut you with that tongue in a way, boss.
Yeah.
Y'all think I'm something.
Yeah. But I learned that a lot of that as I got older was just my grandmother's way of being a sweetheart.
Mm-hmm.
That was her way of being a sweetheart.
If she ain't love you, she ain't mess with you.
No. So you better let her bother you.
But
you know what I mean?
Your grandfather, to watch them, poetry in motion.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like he was just so laid back, cool. We could talk to your grandmama and your granddaddy about any and everything.
Right.
But you were going to get 2 different perspectives that said the same thing. Right. And I miss them.
Yeah. And so my father, on the other hand, he was a businessman. He was business minded. He believed in working from sun up to sundown. And so, that's where, I learned lessons like, I never forget one of my favorite lessons. My dad does not like people to ask him for anything. My dad believes that those who deserve something are those that work for it. And one day, I realized the kind of men that he liked, so I didn't ask for nothing. I learned to pick up a broom at an early age. And if I used that broom, he always made sure when I went home, there was money in my pocket. And one day, I guess somebody had called that phone. And they was asking him for some money. And before he could say no, he got hung up on, and I could see he's still trying to talk. And he looking around that little barbershop. We was in a small barbershop. Then he said, boy, come here. He said, boy, don't you never get mad with nobody about what they do with their money. You want you some money, you go out and get you some, and you do what you want to do with it. And so that's what cultivated the, keep my hands in my pocket unless I was working, right? Not to use my hands as to ask for something, but I wanted to prove who I was, and who I was at a young age was somebody that can learn some lessons. And those lessons has brought so much value, not just to me, but even to my community, right? Because I believe that whatever you give, in order to get something back, you got to let those things go so God can give you more. A lot of people like to close their hands tight. When God has blessed them, they say, oh, I don't want to let go. But if you don't let go, God can't give you any more. And so I want to be a person that can always release what I've been taught, right? Whether you're meant to stay here, whether you're meant to go, I believe that people will be better because we came in contact, right? Nothing is meant to last forever. Nothing.
How do you take your life lessons, or how did you take your life lessons and apply them to entrepreneurship. And tell us about being a business owner where you are,
Mhm.
being a business owner that's very successful, being a business owner who has a name to protect.
Mhm.
Tell us about Brooms Enterprises and Broom Detail.
Well, Brooms is something that my father started. I think my father's been in the same community that I'm blessed to be in for over 50 years. And as a young man, I didn't understand the value of a name. Um, I thought I was protecting the name because nobody knew what I was doing, right? When I wasn't doing the right thing. So in my mind, I'm protecting the name, but I'm also altering the name. I'm also bringing some hurt to the name. There's a pastor. He's a mentor to me now. Reverend Walker is his birthday on Friday, and so he called me to remind me. So happy birthday, Reverend Walker! And so Reverend Walker would say, "I seen you yesterday." And so in my mind, I'm in the neighborhood every day, Reverend Walker. Everybody see me, man. Stop bothering me. But I realized I was selling drugs in front of Reverend Walker house, not knowing. And one day, Reverend Walker, he pulled me to the side and he said, "You know, you can be anything you want to be whenever you get ready to be." He said, "Even if you want to be the mayor of this town, you can." So Reverend Walker kind of changed my perspective of myself. He changed the perspective of the way that I looked at myself and the value that I found in myself. And so then I started protecting. I started worrying about, when God didn't bless me with older men to start that car wash with. God blessed me with kids. And I knew that if I had a desire for kids not to go down the path that I went, I had to make sure that I wasn't not just telling them, because a lot of times people say, "Don't do that." But then on the flip side, they're doing it. And so if I do it in front of the babies, they're going to say, "Well, if you doing it, it's good enough for me." So those kids were another thing that helped me figure out, even working in the church. I used to do youth Bible study. But not only did I use, before I even did youth Bible study, I used to walk kids home, from Sardis, all the way back down to almost by the detail shop, and then walk myself back to the church. And so it's always been about, and my dad told me that when I was a young man. He said, "You're going to be successful because you always put people first. You never worry about yourself. You always put people first." I was blessed enough when I came home from prison to work for a man by the name of John Bussey out at Tom Williams. And John Bussey had this motto that if you give everybody else what they want, eventually you'll get exactly what you're looking for. And so I'm a guy that doesn't come in to get whole pie. I like portions of a pie. And if I can get a portion of a pie, I can pass out pieces of a pie. And if I can pass out pieces of a pie, I can teach people to make their own pie with crumbs. Because it's all about us becoming the best version of ourselves. And sometimes the best version of yourself doesn't mean that you have to be attached to me. Now, because I look at myself like a rocket, and I like to levitate. And what a rocket does, as it begins to levitate, after you get to a certain point, things have to drop off of you because they've done their job. Gas tanks cannot keep riding or you won't levitate. It'll hold you up and it'll hold you back. And so my motto is been more of, how can I teach kids and young men as well to think bigger than the community, to think bigger than the neighborhood. I was having a conversation with a young man about a week ago about the Pusheisty mask that he was wearing. And I said, and just jokingly, I said, "I'd like you to get me one of those in red, though, because I want to see what it's like to wear a Pusheisty when it's hot outside." And so I started asking them some questions, and I learned this great lesson from a car salesman by the name of Robert Cunningham out at Tom Williams Lexus. And excuse me for using so many names, but these are people that I just cannot forget and the lessons that they taught me.
That's what this podcast is about, those
Right?
names.
And so Robert said, he's a white guy. It's the funniest joke that he'd ever told. He said, "El," he said, "you know what I love to see the brothers doing?" I said, "No, Rob, what is that?" He said, "I love to see those brothers with the big rims, and then they got the number on their window to let you know what size rims they are." And he got a good laugh out of it. And as I started to think about that, I started thinking about, we have to stop doing things that's only cool in our community, right? whether we like it or whether we don't like it, it's just certain things that you cannot do. I like to go to 280. And if I got a Pooh Shiesty mask on my face, I'm not trying to take 65. I like to go 31. So I got to go through a little Homewood, a little Vestavia, and a little Mount Brook, and I may not get there safely with them big old rims, right? Or that Pooh Shiesty on my face. So I try to teach kids that because we are in what some people will consider the hood, this is not really the hood. Before I came here, I had an opportunity to visit a plant that I've watched as I traveled to work on the last 15 years. Somehow I passed by 2-3 times a day, and I've always wanted to know what it is. There's a lot of multi-million-dollar companies on 3rd Avenue, right in the midst of what we consider the hood. Somebody else considers a meal ticket. So we have to kind of switch our value of what we see. We are one of the last cities that are being gentrified. And gentrification is a beautiful thing. But for us,
hold on, what'd you say?
Gentrification is a beautiful thing.
One more time for those in the back is the kids say.
Gentrification is a beautiful thing.
Yes.
Most of us grew up in these communities, and somehow, my grandfather had bought a house for the family that probably when he got it was probably worth about $30,000. Right now in this same College Hill neighborhoods, houses are going for $220,000. So that's what generational wealth could look like. But I can't be mad or upset with my grandfather because he couldn't teach that. My grandfather was born in the early 1900s. So that means that his mother was born in the 1800s, and his grandmothers were born earlier than that. And so then, and pardon my French, because sometimes I don't really hold my tongue. I kind of say what I feel like saying. You're talking about slaves and sharecroppers trying to teach a nigga how to survive in America. And that wasn't really a conversation that was being had because we didn't know what we were doing. We just thought if you get a house in America, you've made it. And so I can't say, well, granddaddy was wrong, because a lot of times we look back and we say, man, they was wrong because of what they didn't teach us. They gave us the best information that they had to give. And so where something has been worth $30,000 and we're in this gentrified space and we're in this gentrified state, instead of us saying, hey, don't come over here gentrifying, we should be all armed saying, hey, gentrify us, bring us back up to our real worth. Right? You got to know your worth.
Let me ask you something. You said when you went to prison.
Correct.
I didn't know that. I never knew that.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
So, well, I'm up for I'm waiting to be pardoned for those charges, and some people say that is a difficult process, but I think that when you put in the work, I think the process will just play itself out. Growing up in urban conditions, I saw a lot at the barbershop. Hustlers are always in the neighborhood. And so I think I read a post, they said that you're not from Birmingham, you hadn't been shot before. I
had reposted that.
Right. And so, and we got a good laugh out of that. But, I started thinking, I think this is the week that I graduated from Birmingham Public Schools in 1997. And, on Memorial Day, I was shot, like straight after graduation. I mean, I graduated this week and I was shot, on Memorial Day, right? The next holiday, it's crazy, right? And so that's why I always got a good laugh. So I'm actually coming up on the anniversary of being shot. And so,
we got some crazy anniversaries.
We do, right? We do. And so, when I talked about in the 8th grade about wanting to be someone, you don't really know how to get to where you're going. And so you may make some bad decisions. My Uncle Elvin said this when I first went into business. He said, it's okay to make mistakes, but don't make errors. You can correct mistakes, but you cannot correct errors. Prison is more of a mistake thing. Even in prison, I was in a drug program called the SAP program. And I never forget, somehow I became the speaker of the graduation. And when it came time to be—
I wonder how that happened.
Yeah, right. When it came time to be reclassified to get another job, I never forget, I walked in Lieutenant's office, and Lieutenant and them, they were sitting at this big old desk, and they looked at me, they say, that was you that spoke at the graduation. I said, that was me. They said, you can have any job you want in this camp. I said, So, I picked a job that was rather easy because they had me on the farm when I first got there, and because I'm a city boy. And so he said, hey, stupid, you don't know how to use no hoe. And I'm trying to figure out what we call it stupid. He said, hey, you with the hat. I said, oh, I think he's talking to me. And I don't know nothing about no farming, man. Get me out of here.
Right.
So, prison just kind of came with some bad choices, but it really came at the right time. And a lot of times, even I was having a conversation with a young man that used to work for me that just got out of prison recently. And I try to be very honest with young men. Sometimes when you're making bad decisions, you got two choices. You're either going to die or you're going to prison. I would rather see a lot of young men that I love go to prison, maybe grow up a little bit, maybe mature a little bit, because if they kill you, there is no growing up, there is no maturing. It's not a Birmingham problem, it's an urban American problem. A lot of mamas are picking babies up off the ground, a lot of mamas, and sometimes we can point the finger at mama, but we don't even realize how much that's even killing mama, right? Because nobody's looking to bury a child. I saw my grandmother bury 2 children before she even died. And her children didn't die from gun violence. They died a little older, but the pain of having to bury your child and you have to still live.
Ain't a word for it.
Right? And so strength, and that's what we have. And so prison was actually the best thing that probably could have happened for me in that time and in that moment.
Hey, this is Dr. Cree. I am a board-certified family medicine physician, and I'm the owner of Brownstone Healthcare, where our mission is to take care of the everyday person who's overwhelmed and overworked and looking to live a healthy, happy, and whole life. We have a direct primary care service where you can pay $70 a month to have all access to meet your physician, have discounted labs, and imaging if needed. So you'd pay the $70 a month no matter if you're insured, underinsured, or have no insurance at all. Call us at 205-202-5650 or go ahead and enroll today at www.brownstonehealthcare.com.
What's your favorite local charity?
I don't know if I have a favorite local charity. I think what I've found out is that boots on the ground is what I like. People who are really in the community, really caring about what's really going on in the community. I think I mentioned something about it on the news a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about violence in the neighborhood.
Hold that thought. Hold that thought. I'm gonna pick one, and we'll pick the 100 Black Men of Birmingham. I'm gonna ask you some this or that questions.
Okay.
And if for each question you don't answer, you have to make $100 donation
Gotcha.
to the 100 Black Men. So that'll motivate you
to answer them questions.
Regents Park or Rickwood Field?
Rickwood.
Botanical Gardens or Railroad Park?
Railroad Park.
Protective Stadium or Legacy Arena?
Protective.
Crossplex or Legion Field?
Legion Field.
Birmingham Zoo or McWayne Science Center?
McWayne Science Center.
Sloss Furnace or Vulcan Park?
Sloss.
Civil Rights Institute or Negro League Museum?
Wow. Civil Rights Institute.
with a Birmingham Black Bears hat on. Birmingham Barons or Birmingham Squadron?
Birmingham Barons.
Birmingham Legion or Birmingham Birmingham Legion or Birmingham Stallions?
Birmingham Legion.
Speaking of the Legion, shout out to Jay Heaps. Shout out to their upcoming summer reading program, Hammer Down. Eric, tell us what's going on with the Birmingham Legion.
Yeah,
and put the camera on yourself. I'm not gonna say that shit no more.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right.
You don't get to speak as Darth Vader with nobody seeing who is speaking.
All right. Let's see here, guys. Let's see if I can turn this camera. Well, I cannot.
So he gets to be Darth Vader.
I'm gonna go back to you guys, but I got a couple things for you. So I got three things that I'll talk to you about for the Birmingham Legion. Tell you about their record, what they have upcoming, and the outlook for the rest of the season. So they've played 10 matches, and their record is 4-4-2. So a little nerd tidbit, since we all know I'm a certified nerd, about the scoring system for football or soccer. You get 3 points for a victory, 1 point for a draw, and no points for a defeat. I tell you that because in the Eastern Conference, the Legion is in 6th place, and the top 8 teams of each conference make the playoffs. So they are 3 points clear of the 8th place team. But if they went head to head, that 3 points could get wiped away in one match, in other words. Upcoming games, we've got Saturday, May 25th at Sacramento Republic FC. We've got Saturday, June 1st at El Paso Locomotive SC. The next home game is Sunday, June 9th at Indy 11 at Protective Stadium, 6 p.m. So
say that when the next home game.
The next home game is Sunday, June 9th versus the Indy 11 at Protective Stadium at 6 p.m.
So the first person who comes up to me and tells me the next home game, don't say nothing else. You have to just walk up to me and say, June 6th, what time?
June 9th.
June 9th,
6 p.m.
6 p.m., Protective Stadium. Walk up to me and just say that, and I'm going to hook you up with 4 tickets to the game. So you picked the Legion and didn't know I had all that going on with the Legion. So let's get to it. I got you here because Birmingham Business Resource Center is one of our sponsors and wants to make sure that we lift small businesses in the community, Black businesses in the community, and we appreciate them for giving us the bandwidth to invite young professionals on. So I want to extend that to other businesses out there. Reach out to me. We would love to have you. But I really got you here for a whole different reason, right? Let me tell y'all what Urban Ham News really is, what it's about. Shout out to Fred Davenport. Like you were talking about names, I don't ever want people to think I think of all this stuff. I like to say where my thoughts and creativity comes from. And when Everybody loved Fred Davenport because he would put whatever going on, press conference, this and that, he putting it on live. Mm-hmm. He started that. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know what other people got out of that, but what I got out of that was I get to see and hear everything that is said. Mm-hmm. The news don't get to take a blip out of it and put on what they want to put on. You got to see everything that was said. So whenever you see me do something, you see everything that was said. I know you was cooking. They picked they picked a little part. What'd you say? What'd you say in that little part?
I think I told them that if someone white had came in this community and killed someone black, it would be 100 million people walking 3rd Avenue wanting the violence to stop. But when Tyrone bothers Martez, we teach each other that, you just kill what's in your vicinity. And so we find value in killing one another when we should.
No, see, that ain't what you said in the clip. In the clip, you said it'll be a million people going up and down the street.
Yeah.
But when it's violence, us on us,
it's empty.
I don't see the activists coming.
No, I don't see the activists. No, I don't see the activists. No.
And so it was like, ooh, I know he was cooking.
Yeah, I don't see the activists.
So you are here right now to cook.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Okay. We want to know what was said that Fox 6 left out. I want a message from my baby boy, from my nephew, to the community about shit that need to be said.
I think that a few years ago, we saw it kind of take a whirlwind. BLM, Black Lives Matter. It was a movement. It was a very powerful movement. But what I started to notice about the Black Lives movement was it was just kind of, if somebody white or it wasn't like police involved, there was not going to be any big press conference about it because I guess you can't get famous for trying to stop black on black crime. You could become famous by telling the man, sticking it to the man. That's always, power to the people, but and that's all well and cool. But I didn't really need that for me to realize that Black Lives Matter. Black lives have always mattered even before they came. But if Black lives are so important, why aren't we standing up? Because we lose a lot of lives here. Another thing that they didn't tell is that, I said on the news was at that point, I think we were at about maybe between 40 and 60 something murders. And I had checked that, not even knowing I was going to be on the news. I just had those fun facts in my head. And so I broke them down. And I think in a quarter, we were at like 16 murders a month, right? And I said that on this trajectory, you're talking about the babies that are growing up behind the babies that's doing that, because these ain't number babies killing. Mm-hmm. And so when we talking about babies killing, if the baby's coming up behind them and we're at 16 lives every month here in Birmingham, come 5 or 6 years from now, we're going to be at 40 murders a month.
Now, let's park right there. Hold your thoughts. Dig into that. Like 16 murders a month. How are we going to change it? I wore the activist hat, mm-hmm. But I was a different kind of activist. Yes, everybody shouted me down. I was talking about, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not, that's a whole different story. So I feel good about, when I look in hindsight, I feel good about the messages that I had and the thoughts that I had. It ain't, I'm still on point. Mm-hmm. And so at the time I was at the age of action, then got a little older and was trying to be more of a teacher, a leader. Now, I'm not lying. I done gave up, boss.
Mhm.
I have given up. So from the young leader, what are your thoughts on how do we change this, or does it change?
Um, I think systematically, the writing has been on the walls since the 80s. When they closed Glenn High School down, which was a vocational school that taught vocations, a school that taught trades. And if we look up after Glenn closed down, slowly but surely, we started losing a lot of vocational in school that would teach kids how to weld. You know, kids were learning how to weld in high school here in the Birmingham public school system. Kids were learning trades. There were trades. There were all kind of ways. I think that what we are going to have to do is we're going to have to find babies in elementary schools. And we're going to have to start going into these schools. And even if we're not going into schools, when I look at Birmingham,
Time out. They doing that.
right?
No, I'm serious. It's like they're doing that.
Right?
So
Well,
I'm talking about in our neighborhood. I'm glad we're at this point because I was trying to figure out how I was going to insert this question. I'm at the point now where I don't fool with my friends who have decided that they're going to live in poor decisions.
Mhm.
That don't mean I'm gonna holler at you.
I know
I'm
what
gonna
you
text you. I'm gonna call you. If I see you, it ain't nothing but love.
Mhm.
But this is a direct message. If you've noticed that I've distanced myself from you when we used to hang out, it's because I can no longer look in the mirror and say, you know, I can go hang out with the fellas and it's cool for a minute and go back to my regular life. You know, who am I helping?
Mhm.
Going back to something you said earlier, people are looking at you.
They are.
You know what I'm saying? And so now it's like, all right, that's my way.
Mhm.
A little tough love.
Right.
That's my way of saying I don't condone what you do.
Well, the Bible
So
taught
my
us.
point, say what the Bible says, and then lead into what are we gonna do
The Bible,
through our own personal actions, not what the system need to do, what we need to do.
the Bible says, if you spare the rod, you spoil the child. So there must be tough love. That's what I wanted to ride on the back of that. And our community needs tough love right now. Although we are hurting, we need tough love. We need to actually look in the mirror at ourselves and say, you know, because I see so many times, and I call them little boys, because you are a certain age, it doesn't mean that you are a man, especially if you don't have the mindset of a man. If your brain hasn't matured to talk like a man, walk like a man, act like a man, you are a boy. And ain't nothing wrong with a boy, but a boy needs to be hugged and told everything gonna be all right. You ain't got to do that. You ain't got to go that route. You come over here. The old timers would tell kids when I was growing up, I wouldn't do that, but they didn't have an outlet for what you should do. Well, if you're telling me not to do that, then what shall I do? What do you think I should do? And so a lot of times in my own personal lives, what I try to tell young men is that you can hustle, but you better get you a job too. You come up missing on the street for 8 hours. If you can get you 40 hours on a job a week, it'll save your life.
Now, I don't say you can hustle too.
I
You
totally
feel
agree.
what I'm saying? I used to say stuff like that.
I totally agree.
You know what I'm saying? But now it's like, no, get a job.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Educate yourself.
Yeah. And so, but it's a slow walk with these young men because it's so indoctrinating them, right? You know, the music, the TV.
Oh my
God. And so
between the music and the video games.
Yeah. You know,
they're being taught to kill.
Yeah. And so, but those games sell out by the drove. I mean, it's not, parents buy kids to shooting games. It used to be a parental advisory on a CD. It used to be a certain time you couldn't even go buy a CD by yourself when I was a kid. An adult would have to buy that CD with some cursing on it. But now, you got the phone in the palm of your hand. You can do anything. You can search anything. You can see anything. And so when you see so much, you kind of don't even know who you can be or what you can be because you're trying to figure it out. We thought that when they was telling us that you better keep them babies out in front of the TV raising them, we thought that it was different. My grandmama's house, it was Andy Griffith, Jeopardy, and the stories, right? And you sure enough wasn't finna play none of that cussing music in there.
Nope.
You can forget that. So I think what we have to do is have real conversations, tough conversations.
So in addition to tough love,
Mhm.
I that's one thing that I feel is important.
Mhm.
What else is important? Like systematically, I want to give a shout out to the schools. Man, I sat in this podcast and told them they wasn't gonna raise them numbers like they just raised them numbers. So shout out to Dr. Mark Sullivan, principals, teachers, staff, Birmingham City Schools. Just shout out the board. Shout out to you all. And we're watching them bring back these programs in schools, and we're looking at them do workforce development and trades and whatnot. But in addition to the changes in the system, in addition to tough love, what else do we need?
People got to start getting up and going to work. What I mean is that when I was
That's
growing
a
up,
character builder.
you had doctors, lawyers, important people that lived in your neighborhood. So you would see people going back and forth to work, and it made you say, you know what, I'm going to work.
That's a part of
Right?
life.
If he's going to work and he's got that nice car, that's what I want. She's going to work, she got that nice house, that's what I want to do. But now when our children come out, nobody wants to work. And so our babies are looking at people who are making poor decisions. And so we are building poor decision makers. I had a cousin, he was murdered some years ago, Dave, love Dave. And Carlin and myself was riding the car one day and we got a phone call that Dave had been shot. And so I went to pick up my phone to call Dave. And what I realized was the phone went straight to voicemail. And when you've lived a street life, you know that it's one
You
or
know
two
what that
things
mean.
when that phone go to voicemail, you either dead or in jail. And so I said, well, where did he get shot at? And so ended up getting another call back and said that we had lost Dave. And I had been traveling over to Atlanta to see Dave for some time, and I loved hanging out with Dave. But my life had started to kind of change. When I would call Dave, the places that I would be comfortable going, I wasn't so comfortable going anymore because I wasn't living that way. And I never told Dave that I had changed my life, right? And that day I was calling Dave to say, hey, Dave, we've kind of made it real far off of our grandparents' prayers and off of our family prayers. But man, what is it that you're going to do, man? Because you can't keep living like this. And I didn't get a chance to tell Dave that message. And it was after that day that I realized that whenever I had the opportunity to talk with kids, I would be as honest, as brutally honest as I can possibly be. And just lost another good young man by the name of TJ. Tate is what we called him. He was murdered at his car wash, right in the neighborhood. I think 4 people were murdered that day. And this was a young man who his mom had posted something about 8 years ago about how he was starting his own car wash and he was kind of having some problems with the city. And she was reaching out for people to point him in the right direction so he can be in business. And the young man just wanted to be in business. Young man just wanted to wash cars, and he was murdered at his car wash about nothing that he had done. And it was possibly people that he was standing next to. Just like you said, we as Black men, we have to stop hanging out with men who don't take care of their children. We got to stop hanging out with men who don't make great decisions, because what I believe, and because I believe it doesn't make it fact, it is my perspective. The more men or the more people that I hang around that are not going in the direction I'm going, they're going to pull me back in their direction before I can pull them in my direction.
That's right.
Right? So we have to teach one another how to make good decisions,
And one of them is going to work.
Going to work.
I mean, that's
Going to work.
That's a really good, sound, approachable goal. A mindset. Work.
Well, we with this instant gratification, we've been taught that everybody has this entrepreneur mindset, and if you ain't working for yourself, don't go work for nobody else. I wouldn't know what I know if I hadn't worked for somebody. Everything that I know that I do on Third Avenue, John Bussey taught me.
And contrary to popular belief, entrepreneurship is not the road to quick money.
No.
It is like it's just it's
the road to no sleep.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know where this romantic idea of entrepreneurship came from. It's hard.
Yeah.
It requires dedication.
Yes.
It requires focus.
Yeah.
It requires. It's not just about going to the store and buying a case of water for $5 and selling each one for $5.
Yeah.
It ain't that. It's just not that simple. But anyway,
my alarm goes off at 4:30 every morning, and my feet is hitting the ground by 5, and I'm probably in the gym between 5:20 and 5:45 Monday through Thursday for the last 8 years. And it was more about me building myself for the journey and not for what I had a desire to look like, but what I had a desire to be. And to be in business, you're going to get 2 water bills. You're going to get 2 power bills. Everything is going to come in 2. I'm not saying don't go that route, but you better be for sure that you are ready to stand in that water, because that water gets deep. Christmas come around. Can you afford those Christmas gifts for your children? Can you afford?
While paying the work bills.
Yeah. Don't think about the staff, because you have to staff. You have to have a staff. You have to pay for the staff. So, is entrepreneurship a good thing? It's an awesome thing. It's an awesome thing, but it's also a tough thing, and it's a process thing. The late, great Curtis Motley said it this way. Curtis said, it took me 10 years to figure myself out, and it took me another 10 years to get what I was looking for. That's 20 years.
That's right.
But most people are saying, it ain't even happened by month 6. I can't do this no more.
I can't do this no more.
Right? And here is this successful brother. He waited 20 years. 20 years to be as successful as he thought he could be, but nobody is willing to develop or to devote that much time into themselves. I'll be at Broom's Auto Detail 15 years, if it's the Lord's will, this June. Right?
Wow.
It has not been the easiest. Boy, have my children struggled. Right? But we've also found our way out of struggle.
Sure.
Being an entrepreneur is trying to figure out, how do I pay the bills? Then once you figure out how to pay the bills, and you say, well, how do I profit? But all of that is a process within itself. And so although it looks very glamorous, being an entrepreneur doesn't mean that I made $500 today and I can put $500 in my pocket. You probably get to put $60 in your pocket. You got to put man,
if I make $500 today, that's going toward a $1,000 bill. I'm still looking back up. One last thing. You brought that work thing in. I love that. What role does the church play in today, and what's going on and what could be going on, and that? What role does the church play?
The church plays a very heavy role. I love my mama. This is what my mother would do when we were children. My mother would say, y'all don't have to go to church, but you're going to Sunday school, or you don't have to go to Sunday school, but you're going to church. And we'd pick one. And like I said, my mother had 5 children. We lived in a 2-room apartment. And my mom would open a change purse, and she would give each one of us some change to put in church. And every time we put some change in church, something was given to us, but we were taught to give at a young age. And we was taught that it didn't take a whole lot to give to receive something, but you just had to do a little work. And so the church in these urban communities better realize that they are responsible for some of the blood on the concrete. You just can't come from out of that pretty neighborhood, pull up to that church, close your door, lock your doors, go in your church, praise God amongst the saved, and you forget about those outside of the church that's not saved. The church is going to have to start having some of these programs that school are having. The church is going to have to start opening their door to saying, hey, we don't have all the answers, but we can show you some things. Because most people are just looking for answers. And so if a church has a gym, they should be opening their gym up to the community and not saying things like, well, they're not members here. Well, you got to make them a member there. You know, Jesus didn't spend a lot of time in church. When Jesus went to church, he went to church to tell them how wrong they were. You know, you turn this thing into a den of thieves, man. And he would go back out and he would find children that would help him feed the multitude. So what the church can do is the church can teach children that if your mama ain't got number 5 loaves and 2 fish, and I'm going to just use that because that's the word, right? If your mother only has 5 loaves and 2 fish to give you, God can turn that into enough to feed a multitude. And a multitude can be the whole city of Birmingham, right? If we use it right. So the church has to stop trying to be what the world is and be what the church is. The church didn't used to want to be famous. My preacher used to work. You know, my preacher, Reverend Broom, I don't know if he's still living. That's who baptized me. But Reverend Broom had a job and he preached.
Well, that was a trick question. It wasn't intended to be, but it turned into one. See, I would argue that the church is still doing that. I would argue the church has never stopped doing that.
Right.
Where I was going with it, I don't know where I was going with it, but how do we help the church get the people into the church that need to be in the church? See, my point is, yes, the church has to open its doors and has to have outreach. But if I'm not, your friend you were talking about, you were saying, I never had the chance to tell him, you know, I don't live that life no more. What should we be inviting folk to church? I'm saying, like,
but that's
we
got
we got to go to church.
We got to go to church.
That's one.
We got to go to church.
Yeah, but
right?
like, I'm just saying, we talk about policing. Police can't do it all. We got to help the police.
Amen.
Church can't do it all.
We got to help the church.
We got to help the church. How can we help the church?
We have to go to church. We have to realize that, because as Black people, we talk so much about what we don't like. And we get so upset with the preacher that we forget that we're not going to church for the preacher. We're going to church to please God. Right? And here it is, we falling out with man, but we're doing no work in the community.
Like, I've heard people talk so bad about their church.
Right?
Go to a different one. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't stop getting your hair done just because somebody messed up your hair.
There you go.
You find somebody that can do your hair.
You don't stop going to Walmart when you have a bad experience. There you go.
You know what I'm saying?
So, and we have to treat the church like we treat life. Deacon Fred Thomas, God rest his soul. I would do a prayer meeting with him on Wednesdays, and Deacon Thomas would say, Broom, right or wrong, stick with the church.
Right or wrong, stick with the church.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it's not on us to pinpoint what we don't like about the church. Because I remember one day I was looking around the church and I said, I'm looking for all these men that, you know, I want to be. Where's the man that I want to be? And God quietly said to me, boy, you be the man you want to see. And you let somebody look at you. So where we're finding fault in leadership, you should be the leader that you want to see. Everybody's waiting to say, well, today I'm going to make you a boss. But if you weren't acting like a boss yesterday when I make you a boss, how can you be a boss today?
Man, bring it. I know you got to get to work, back to work, but bring us home. Bring us home with some of your wisdom. You're the youngest wise man I ever seen in my life. You know, I just leave us with something.
If I could leave you with anything, I would say take time out to love someone, whether they are right or whether they are wrong. The Bible teaches us that love can conquer all, and I think that we've kind of thrown that away because we want someone or something to be perfect for us to have to love it. I think that love can change all things. I've been successful because I loved before I persecuted. And even after I persecuted, I still loved. I believe in whooping my children. And after I whoop my children, I put them in my arms and tell them how much I love them. Because I don't want to whoop you, but I don't want no one else to whoop you as well. And so if you hadn't reached out to somebody that you're having fault with or having, problems with, call them and stop trying to wait on somebody to apologize to you. You be apologetic, right? We're not perfect. We sit around and we want someone to apologize to us so bad. You should call somebody you've done wrong and you apologize to them. So some loving and some apologies can change a lot of things that we have going wrong. So I just want to say, if I've ever done anything wrong to anybody, I apologize. I love you. And I pray that you can love me as well.
Man, I want to thank you for coming, for provoking, for leading, for being a beacon. I thank you for everything you are and hope to be. You are like, I love you so much. And I'm so proud of what you're doing right now. And I see so much more to come. It has been an honor to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you.
I want to thank, as always, Creed 63 and urbanham.com for everything that you do. And I want to thank you all for joining us, watching and listening. God bless.
This podcast has been brought to you by Jefferson County Sheriff's Office.